Hey guys, welcome into Mountain Man Treasure. I'm Troy, and today we're talking feedback. Okay, so feedback is very important, right? Particularly for newer sellers, for people that are just getting started. That's very, very important to get that feedback. Number one, just for consumer confidence, right? Nobody wants to buy from somebody with zero feedback or with poor feedback, right? They want to be able to trust that this is a person that's done this for a while. I'm going to get what I ordered on time, in good condition, all of that. But the other thing is we want to avoid scammers, right? And people that are new, people that have new accounts, people that don't have a lot of feedback, they have to deal with all that shenanigans that we just don't want to have to deal with. So how do we get that feedback score bumped up? There's nothing we can really do to make it happen, or is there? Are there things that we can do? I think there are. I think there's no one answer here, right? There's not one thing that you do and all of a sudden, there's no feedback fairy. You can't hit that one button or do that one thing and all of a sudden you're getting all the feedback you want and need. But there are things that we can do. This isn't the answer. Nobody has the answer. Just like nobody has the answer to how Cassini works. Nobody has the answer to how that almighty algorithm works for eBay. We think we know. We have some good ideas and we can put a few things together that make sense. And I think we can do the same thing with feedback. So let's talk about real numbers for a minute. Let's look at my account, right? Because it doesn't make any sense if we're not applying this in the real world. So if you look into my seller hub, it says that over the last 12 months, we've got 1,681 transactions over the last 6-month period. Now, that comes out to right about 140 transactions a month. So obviously there's slower months, there's faster months, but we're looking at roughly it's 140 transactions a month, pushing 1,700 over the last year. But feedback, that's what we're talking about, right? Feedback. So since starting at our feedback number works here because the first thing that I sold was January 23rd, I believe, of 2019. So we're 13 months now past that, but really those first few weeks that we did anything in January, there wasn't much happening. So we're basically a year in, at least close enough for us to run the numbers, right? So in 1 year, we picked up 909 positive feedbacks. We're sitting at 909 right now, at least as of when I check the numbers for this thing. So I think that's pretty solid, right? 909 feedback in 1 year. And you look at the percentage, that comes out to, I think it's like 54%, which seems to be about where we sit. We sit between about 50 and 55%. It bounces up and down between there, which I think is solid. So when I checked the numbers this morning, I had 64 feedback this month. That's as a seller, not as a buyer. And we're going to talk about feedback as a buyer coming up here in just a minute. But 64 feedback strictly as a seller. So I think that's important. And so let's break into what those numbers then look like, because I dug a little bit deeper into those 64 to find out what is it that those people are talking about. Maybe there's a common thread through all of these feedbacks, and you know what, there is, and I think it jumps out pretty quickly. It's not hard to find, and I was pretty sure I knew what it was before I even started doing the numbers, but it was nice to sort of see the numbers bear out what I thought that I was doing. So I went through the list of 64 and I looked at them to find commonalities. What are they all mentioning? And so I looked at them. There are 24 of those 64 that mention speed of shipping. Speed of shipping is the number one thing that they mention. 24 of the 64 feedbacks that we've got this month as a seller start, or at least in part talk about the speed of shipping. That's 37.5%, guys. That's a significant amount of those feedbacks. Now you keep digging in to find out, okay, well, who's second? A lot of people mentioned packing, or at least a handful of them, 7 of those 64 mentioned the packaging or the packing. That's just under 11% is where that sits. So that's still a pretty significant number, right? And then you look at other things, and they mention service, they mention communication, they mention, some say good bargain or good price, right? And then some of them talk about the description. They say, exactly as described. I knew exactly what I was going to be getting. That's what showed up in my mailbox. So there's the bullet points. Let's break down those a little bit. So number 1, speed, right? I've got my store set on 1 business day for shipping. I know a lot of people can't do that, or a lot of people don't want to do that. When I started, I thought that was a way to sort of set myself apart from some of the other sellers out there that had 2-day or 3-day shipping. I needed to give myself any kind of edge I had as a new seller to convince people to go with me. So maybe I didn't have the feedback, but hey, this guy says he'll get it to me a day or 2 days faster than the other guy, and his price is a little bit better. I'll take a shot, right? That was the thinking. I'm not sure if it worked. I think it worked. But here's the thing. We've got 1 business day, right? I like to try to get stuff out the day of, if I can. Now, I don't make this a habit. I don't go necessarily out of my way to make it happen. But when I can make it happen, when it's feasible, when it works, I like to try to fit it in. Now, I'm lucky in the sense that the post office by my house doesn't close until 6 o'clock. So they're open relatively late. I can get stuff there at 5:55 and get it on the last truck. Now, the post office is about a 5-minute drive from my house. So it doesn't take me long to get there, and I have a late close. So that's really, really nice. What happens a lot is I'll go to the post office sometimes twice a day. Other times, if I know I've got stuff that has come in the morning, I'll just come home from work. I do this part-time, so I do have a day job. I come home from work, I pack up all the stuff either from the night before or even some of it from that day and bring it all at once. If it's easy, it just makes sense, right? If you sold a hat, if you sold a t-shirt, you sold an RA toy that just has to be put in a box. If it takes 10 seconds to put it in a box and another 10 seconds to print the label, why wouldn't you, if you can, get it out that day? Now, think about it. This is especially important if people order stuff either on a Friday or right ahead of a weekend. Especially savvy buyers, they understand that if they order something on Friday, it's the next business day. You're not going to ship this thing out until Monday. So they've got to wait days in order to get this thing. Or a holiday, like we recently had the long holiday where Monday was a postal holiday, so nothing was going out until Tuesday. Well, if you were able to get that package in the mail Friday afternoon, especially if it's like a 2-day priority, it went out Friday. If it was close enough, it might have even got there on Saturday. If not, they're thinking, hey, I ordered this thing, I want it, it's not going to come out, and he's not going to get it in the mail until Tuesday because the Postal Service is closed because of the holiday. Well, guess what? If I got it in the mail on Friday, there's a good chance that they're going to get it on Tuesday. So all of a sudden, somebody's thinking that it's not getting dropped on the mail until today. Wait, it's in the mail. I have it now. That's a good buyer experience, right? That's something that's going to stick out. They're going to appreciate that. That results in positive feedback. Now, packing member number 2 on my list for this month. 11% of my positive feedbacks mentioned the quality of the packing. I use bubble wrap on a lot of stuff, probably most of my stuff. Even the things that don't need it, I'll put one wrap around a plush sometimes. Not because it needs it, but I think a little bit of it is perception, right? You've heard perception is reality. You want the customer to see that you care about the item that they bought. You didn't just throw it in a box, slap a label on it, and toss it on the counter. You took some time. You want to make sure that it gets there in a good condition. You want to make sure that it's protected. So I put a little bit of bubble wrap around it. It's very cheap, and I think it looks good to the customer when they open it up, and it's not just their item sitting in a box, right? I I think it matters, and the good thing is bubble wrap also works as good void fill, and it's cheap, right? And it's light. So there's a lot of things that play in our favor here, but above all, when it comes to feedback, it just looks good to the customer, right? That you're trying to protect their investment. But it's not all just bubble wrap either. If you put, I don't tend to, because I kind of think that when the Postal Service sees it, they take it as a challenge. But you can put fragile stickers on the outside of the box, right? Even if you've packed it well enough that this thing is going to get there, it's going to be fine. You put the fragile sticker on there sometimes, not for the Postal Service, but for reassurance for the customer. Same thing. I tape in a cross pattern across boxes. I tape long ways and I tape across the width. Not because they all need it. I've got good tape. It's not going to come off. But I think that's noticed as well. I think customers see, well, wow, he made sure that this thing wasn't going to come out. Do they all notice? No. Do most notice? Maybe, probably not. But some of them probably do, right? I mean, I'm not wrapping this thing up so it takes them 20 minutes to get into it. But I wrap it up enough so that they can see that I took time to make sure that this box was going to stay closed. Again, maybe it's unnecessary, right? But it's inexpensive. It's a little detail that might speak to the buyer. It doesn't hurt whatsoever. I've also started to put things in a clear bag. They're very cheap. One, they act as a guard against any kind of moisture, so that helps us there. But two, it just looks more professional. Essentially, we're saying this looks better than this, right? I mean, which would you rather have fall out on your counter when you open your package? Let's turn him around so he's the right way. Which looks better, right? This looks more professional. It looks like you care. It looks like you're running a business and you're not just selling stuff out of the trunk of your car. Okay, so put stuff in plastic bags. Again, it's a little thing. It's nothing huge, but all these little things, I think they add up. Okay, let's look at the other stuff, right? What are some of the other things we talked about? Service. That's very broad, but it's a bit of an all-encompassing thing. They like the experience from the front to the back end. So that's some of this. That's, hey, they put my stuff in a plastic bag, right? That's the experience. That's the service. Communication, something that they mentioned. Now, it can be frustrating. It can be annoying. But if they message and they're reasonable, write them back, right? I understand a little bit of this turns into hand-holding, and it can be super frustrating. But it's helpful. And if you sort of guide those people through that process, very often they're going to be very happy with you. One, because if they're being that particular about stuff, they really want it. And if you take care of them, they see that you really want them to get it. So a little bit of hand-holding is not a bad idea. Again, I get that it's frustrating. It's frustrating to me too. But if they're worried about it arriving on time, shoot them an update. You know, a day, 2 days later, check the tracking and say, hey, I just wanted to let you know it's in X location. Projected delivery date is still on this day. Just communicate with them. If you have an issue, if they get it and there's a problem, don't let it sit there and marinate for 3 days. eBay may give you that time. Don't take it. You don't need it. Get back with them. Fix the problem. I mean, customer service matters. And I recognize that sometimes we're going to have bad buyers. And those instances are a little bit different. But if it's just an instance where we screwed up or something happened in shipping, whatever it is, it's something that we should take care of. I've gotten positive feedback from customers that I had to refund, or that probably could have found a way, well, I mean, any of them can, but they could have found a way to file an INAD. And instead, I took care of the problem, and they gave me glowing feedback. I think it matters. Customer service is important. Description is something else. You know, this is one that I think new sellers struggle with. I struggled with it a little bit when I started because as a new seller, you want to make everything look as good as possible, right? You want that thing to look like a shining star. That's true, right? That's not something you don't want to do. But you can't do it at the cost of sort of hiding the flaws, right? You have to show what's wrong. And it's not good enough to say, you know what, I took that wide angle shot, you can see that there's a scuff on the shoe right there. Take the wide angle shot and then zoom in. Show the scuff. If there's a spot on the shirt, take a picture of the shirt and then zoom in. Take a picture of the spot with a dime or a quarter or something sitting next to it. Then they can see, oh, this is when they say this is a small spot. They're serious. It's a little small spot because now they have something to compare it to. But they can also see that, you know what, they're not hiding it. They're showing me exactly what is wrong with this shirt, with these shoes, with this, with the package, you know, the box, whatever it is. Don't just say that it's there. Show them that it's there. Say in the description, put it out, but also say see description for details, and take detailed pictures of anything that's wrong. We still want this thing to look good. We still want it to stand out above the rest, but you can't hide anything that's wrong with it. That was the one negative feedback that I got that finally just fell off the other day. Was in my first month of selling a Mishi, the shell that goes on the outside of that purse. I think I said that it was in very good condition, and it was a little bit of a, you know, she disagreed. Her very good was not my very good, and I guess that's fair, right? She tried to say that I did a very good job of hiding the flaws. I wasn't trying to hide the flaws, but I was new, and I wasn't trying to point them out as much as I should have. I didn't want to say, hey, look at all of what's wrong with my item, because that sounds wrong, right? That sounds like, how am I going to sell it if I say, hey, this and this is wrong with it? That's what you got to do. You have to show, you have to tell everything that's not right. Now, none of these things are particularly difficult, right? They're all mostly little things, but as I said before, all these little things add up to a great buyer experience. And especially when people have had bad experiences before. I mean, we're all buyers on eBay as well, right? We've gotten packages where it's like, what were they thinking? Why did they send it this way? How could they have packaged it like this? You know, whatever, fill in the blank. We've had situations where we kind of scratch our head and go, what were they doing? All of these people have had those same things. And some of them, maybe that's what they expect. So when you do all these little things, they add up and you raise the bar, not only for yourself, but for the rest of eBay sellers. But they have to compare it against the stuff that they've had before. So if you raise the bar, if you set yourself above the other sellers that they've had to deal with, they're going to go out of their way. They're going to mention that. They're going to want to give you that positive feedback. One other thing that you can do, I started putting in stickers. I got these stickers. You can see one on this package. Just a little thank you sticker. I started putting those on all of my items. Now, some of them that didn't necessarily have wrapping on them, I put it on the outside of the box. I think it's a very little thing, but I think it's something that matters. It's one more little detail, right? To show you're not throwing something in a box and just getting it out the door. You're putting time into it. You're putting care into it. And I actually ran out of those stickers, and so I've started using these eBay cards. I don't like them as much. I mean, it's kind of cheesy on the back, right? Your order made my day. I hope this package makes yours. Now, they do have space for people to sign or write a thank you note or whatever. I don't do that. I just put them in there. I got these with the coupon for this first quarter. 400 of them, and I only paid a couple bucks more than I get the $25 coupon because of the level of my store. So I did that rather than go through and buy more stickers. That particular sticker I couldn't find anymore, and I liked it, and I didn't want to have to find a new one. So I will probably buy stickers for when these run out, because I don't love these as much, and sometimes I'm forgetting to put them in there. The nice thing about the stickers, if I realize I forgot to put a sticker in the package, I can put it on the package. These, if you forget, you've either got to open it up or just go without. Typically, I go without. So I think these are a good thing, some form of thank you. Now, personally, I think you can take it too far. There's some of these cards that people have made, and they put a lot of time and they put a lot of effort in them, and visually they look fine, right? They look nice. But there's basically thank you cards in these that say, hey, thank you for your service. Please give me 5 stars, and please give me feedback. I don't do that. I don't particularly like that when I get those. It feels clingy. It feels needy, right? It's one of those things where if you're asking for feedback, you better be ready to get it, because if you put one of those in there, and for whatever reason somebody's unhappy with what you send them, it's going to be oh, I'll give them feedback, and all of a sudden you've got a negative feedback that maybe eBay will take off, maybe they won't. I think people far too often, now we've said feedback is important, you've got to build that up, but at a certain point, once you've built up a little bit of a reputation, because feedback is your reputation, right? Once you've built up that eBay reputation, no feedback is a good feedback. That means the person got their thing, they were happy with their thing, they went on with life, right? We only get feedback when people are on either end of the spectrum, when they're very happy or they're very upset. That's when you're going to get the feedback, right? So be careful. If you ask for feedback, you might just get it. So I don't like those. I don't like the way they feel. I don't like what they might bring about if somebody is on the fence and maybe they're crabby. So I just put a thank you card in there and leave it at that. So I think if you check off a lot of these boxes that we've been talking about, more often than not, you're going to get that feedback. It's going to come. Now, I mentioned that there is feedback as a buyer, right? That's another thing that new sellers can use to help bump that score up and get it going a little bit quicker. This is something you can do to help yourself out, because we can, as sellers, leave negative feedback for a buyer. So as long as they pay, I give them their positive feedback. I've got no problem with that. A lot of people have that thing set to automatic. I generally do it every day, every other day. I just go in and leave everybody feedback. A lot of people have that just set as automatic. As soon as you pay, you get a generic feedback. Yeah, it might be generic, but you know what? It's a 5-star positive. That's going to add up. Now, when people look at your feedback, they can sort it as a buyer or as a seller. Now, if they're really digging in, they can find that. But when they just look at your name and they look at that number after your name on the item you're selling, it's just an aggregate total. So it's adding in all of the feedback you got as a buyer. And remember, all the feedback you get as a buyer is positive. So go out there and buy a few things. Buy shipping supplies. Buy the stickers, or through eBay. Buy the little thank you cards. There's a lot of things you can, and there's a lot of things you should get for the business on eBay. Maybe and don't spend a lot. You know what? Go out there and you say, you know what? I want a T-shirt. I'd love to have a new T-shirt, or I could have a new T-shirt at least, right? Go out there, search for something that you like, sort by lowest plus shipping. So maybe you're only going to pay $7.99 for it. You get a shirt that you like, and you're going to get a positive feedback. Buy something every now and again. And as an aside, that supposedly helps the algorithm that eBay sees that you're active on there. You buy things, sometimes you sell things. But in terms of feedback, buy some stuff on eBay, get positive feedback. That's going to add to your total. It's just one more tool that you can use to build your feedback. There's nothing that's 100%, but it's just like trying to goose that algorithm. There are things you can do that maybe, probably, possibly help. And I think a lot of this stuff does help. I think even if it doesn't help you, I mean, say none of this helps you get a positive feedback, it helps you run a better business. And don't we all want to run a better business? I think this is a good thing to do. So I hope this helps. And if you have any thoughts on these tips, maybe you have your own that you found, you know what, since I started doing this, my feedback's gone up, whatever it is. Let me hear about it. Let me know what's going on. Let the other people that are watching the video know about it. I'd love to see those comments build on this thing, because it is important, and it's important particularly for as I said, newer sellers. This is something that is concerning for a lot of newer sellers. And it's going to save a lot of newer sellers when they start dealing with those scammers as well. Because you can lose money with some of those scams that you just, as a new seller, you just don't know about. So I appreciate the time. Thanks for tuning in. And like I said, leave a comment underneath. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. We're actually now 351, I think, on the subs as of making this video. So that's awesome. We passed the 350 mark, and we're pushing towards 500. I'm very excited. We've got some cool stuff that's in the initial planning stages for some giveaways, stuff like that, once we hit 500. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're going to get there. I mean, we've picked up 351 since December, so the ball is rolling. It's building slowly. I really enjoy doing this and sharing what I've learned with you guys. And yeah, subscribe, because once we hit 500, we're going to have I think we're going to have some pretty cool giveaways. So that's what I've got, guys. I appreciate it. I know this got a little bit long. It got a little bit professory, but I hope that had a little bit of information in there that you can use. I hope you come back around. Next video, we've got a little bit of a Goodwill thrift haul. I found one of my personal bucket list items. It's not a huge thing, but something I've been wanting to find for a while. It took me a year, but I finally found it. That's coming up on the next Mountain Man Treasure. We'll see you guys.